Hi everyone, I'm super excited to share the second episode of my podcast. Although I had a few technical glitches, this is still a great conversation. This time, my guest was Patrick Mahoney. He's a really interesting person and he and I have a bunch of overlapping interests, which I found made this conversation pretty interesting. He's an entrepreneur, having started his own CBD company because of causes very personal to himself, which he was more than willing to share. He's also a student of chiropractics, which is really interesting because I did some marketing consulting for a chiropractor close to my home. And he and I also have a bunch of other overlapping interests, which we get into. So I hope you enjoy this podcast, and please forgive any of those technical glitches I mentioned. There we go. Hey, what's up?
How are we doing?
Good. So I thought you would be an awesome person to have on and chat with. Obviously, because you seem like a cool dude. We met for all of 5 minutes the other week, and but I've learned more about you from your social and also through Maeve. And you just seem like we have like lots of common interests. You're on the carnivore diet, you're into like alternative medicines. You're into chiropractics, which is something that I was working with a chiropractor for my like side hustle and everything. So there's like a lot of things that we have overlap, like in terms of our Venn diagrams of interests. Definitely there's a lot to talk about, and I think I'd love to chat with you. So
Yeah, for sure, man. Definitely agree with that. I think we definitely have a couple of things to chat about. So yeah, glad we were able to get together.
yeah, I mean the first and the thing that I learned or met you from was whole plant medicine, and I got a bottle of this stuff from Maeve, and she was kind enough to let me try it, and it's pretty awesome. I mean, I definitely noticed my recovery was a lot better, my sleep was a lot better on CBD, but it's not like it's other psychoactive um, elements of like the hemp plant. Sorry, my camera's gonna jump in and out. I think something wrong with the software. Um, but I'm still
No
here.
worries. No
But
worries.
so you could tell me about whole plant medicine. Like, I know we talked about it earlier, but like, what got you to start it? What inspired this versus, any other endeavor? Anybody could start a side hustle nowadays, but why CBD?
Yeah, so I mean, I love to hear that you're having some success with it as far as, recovery and things of this nature. I mean, it is really great to see all the benefits that it can have. And I mean, we could talk more about that, but just as far as getting started and everything, pretty much I was just taking a gap year after my undergraduate college. I was planning on going to med school, and my mom got diagnosed with cancer. And so I was kind of like, all right, I've been kind of in the cannabis world for a little while. That's definitely something that we need to pursue. And so, just with the medical profile and everything in New Jersey, it was kind of tough because we literally went there. They're like, here's an eighth of like nugs. And like, I don't know, have you ever rolled the joint before? And I'm like, dude, it's my mom. She has lung cancer. Like, you're telling her to roll a joint. Like, you don't have like oils or pills or anything. And they're just like, yeah, we don't do that. So I kind of got started in the whole, hemp cannabis world just with pure cannabis and just making all of my own extracts in my house, in my garage for my mom. I was getting all different types of strains, for different things, whether it was anxiety or nausea or sleep. And, we had a couple of different strains working, and I would just make them at different strengths and, give her a milligram or two during the day and 10 or 20 milligrams at night, all these different types of things. And that was great for her. She did really well. And then as we were exploring CBD, THC, we realized during the day, CBD was really what we needed to get after, and we heard a lot of people talking about it. So we ordered all we probably ordered 10 or 15 different products, spent, a couple $100 on the internet, and it was really just no dice. It was like, well, what my mom's taking, she's still taking the same amount. It's like, maybe she had some kind of maybe she felt better or something, but all the measures that you could say of like how much pain medication is she taking, et cetera, it wasn't changing. So I was just like, well, this is kind of, what can you do? And then just one day we were just sitting around talking, and it was like, well, you take the raw buds and you make all this homemade herbal oil for your mom for the THC oils. Why don't we just do the same thing for the CBD, for the hemp? So I pretty much just bought a whole heck of a lot of organic hemp and just started making my own oils for that too. And I mean, it was an absolute world of difference. You know, that homemade, that herbal extract of just doing it right in alcohol. Anyone could do it at home. You know, you can, there's a couple different variations if you want to filter it, if you want to do it at different temperatures. But, you know, we were doing that. And within a month, my mom's just off opioids, you know, and she was going strong with that for over a year, you know, just pretty much just replacing all of her pain medication, all of her nausea medication with just CBD during the day. Once she found the CBD, she didn't want to take the THC anytime but at night. And sometimes she wouldn't even want to take that. You know, she would go for 2 weeks or a month tolerance break, and the CBD would put her to sleep just fine. And we kind of discovered that's what worked better for us. So, you know, I started taking it, you know, my dad's taking it, we're giving it to family and friends, and it's just one after another, you know, it does this for this person and that for that person. And then eventually we were like, look, we got to get this out to the world, you know, like it's, you know, because everybody's heard of CBD, but everybody's picking up some powder at Walgreens that was made in some factory and is just,
Right.
you know, from a Chinese medicine point of view, you've lost the essence of the plant. But you know, it's you know, you can go into the science and everything else. It's not like that easy to really delineate, but there's a clear difference in efficacy when you keep it how nature had it. You keep it in that natural plant extract, and that's kind of what I said. I got to bring this to the world. So that was kind of, you know, when I went about making the company and getting an actual supply chain and everything else like this.
Okay, so you basically you were starting from a need and then you filled that need, but then you realized that hey, I've already got a lot of the groundwork in place to supply it, so let's just scale that, right?
Yep.
That's really awesome. I mean, that's how most side hustles start, right? And it's really cool that like it's an actual product because I started a supplement company in college. It was for the nootropic side of things. I don't know if you've heard of nootropics.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, so if you have, that's another concentric circle or a spot that we lie over. But like, we started that and it went well. But then just real life hit, and I realized that I wasn't gonna make it big on nootropics because it's a very highly competitive market. And
Alpha Brain got you out.
yeah, our good friend Joe Rogan, he's a little bit bigger than us, right?
Yeah.
Um, but so I tried to like look into why, like you can go onto Amazon and you can see hemp, 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 hemp all the way down. And then I was like, well, I don't want to go to somebody's website necessarily. Like, we all trust Amazon, right? We trust Amazon to buy shoes, to buy, clothing, to buy even food through Whole Foods. But like, why can't I, as a customer, purchase like actual CBD and it's all of this hemp stuff on Amazon? Is that something like with legality?
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of where we're at right now. I mean, 2018 Farm Bill, that's what made things a bit of a boondoggle for the CBD industry specifically. But what kind of has happened is that independent companies still don't jive with it, you know, like, and a lot of times that streams back to banking, you know, like banking and credit card processing has been a real pain for me just because um essentially what happened was the farm bill made everything legal, but it didn't, I mean, it more so made it not illegal because the wording of the bill was made by, you know, politicians, which, you know,
Right.
I was grateful that they did that, but it left a lot up to chance, you know, and so a lot of people were, you know, when you see these isolates, that's generally what you're going to see in like a Walgreens or something like that. And even most health food stores, you know, gas stations, most, you know, vast majority of the CBD you're going to see is going to be some kind of an isolate or highly processed product. And that's because that is something that's going to be a lot more legally safe. Like there's going to be no representation of that bill that would make that illegal. So if you're getting your trust fund buddies together and you're planting, $20 million into this or something like that, you don't want a year to go by and then well, we really meant this, and you're kind of out of luck. So, not that, my product is completely legal, but it's also, it just wasn't the most specific bill. And most banks and things like this, they want the most clear cut thing in the world. They want no anything. So until that happens, it's pretty hard. So then when you extrapolate that out to different huge vendors, if I have problems getting my money to a bank or getting credit card processing, somebody who's going to be doing massive amounts of business like Amazon isn't going to want to put their reputation on the line. Maybe they have some moral things against cannabis or hemp, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of things that would make them not want to do it. And so basically they have a policy against it. So if you go onto Amazon and you search hemp, there's lots of hemp products, but they're usually hemp seed products. So it'd be the same as like olive oil. It's hemp seed. And so there's no CBD, there's no anything other than like omegas and minerals in the seeds, which are great. They make great oils. You can cold press them, use them on your skin, or maybe in a smoothie or something like that. But it's a completely different animal than a CBD or like the hemp extract that you'd be looking for some kind of medicinal value.
Okay, yeah, because I bought a bottle of one of those hemp products, and it obviously I noticed nothing from it. I took it for a few days, and for the $15 or whatever I spent on Amazon, it's a Prime product. It had good reviews, and the reviews suggested like pain relief and whatever, but um, I don't think I saw anything from it as compared to like the actual CBD that you uh, had given me. And I definitely noticed a difference. I mean, it felt like taking, some of those re poorly recommended products, like I don't know, you go to the gym, right? And you take a non-stimulant pre-workout, you don't really notice much. You take a
Yeah.
stimulant pre-workout, you notice something. And it's
Yeah,
like
for sure.
that's what I thought it was in my mind. But now hearing that, you're saying this is not, it's there's nothing functional other than positive health effects like omegas and stuff like that out of those hemp products.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know exactly really right today what's happening, but I do know that over the course of time, it's been kind of a bit of a cat and mouse game with just, what you say on the products and the marketing and what they allow. And so there very well might be some that have CBD, but, you're not going to be getting the level of transparency that you would through an independent company that's got, lab results and test the hemp and all these different things to be really upfront with you what you're getting and why it's different, and why it doesn't have heavy metals or whatever, because we can actually show the testing results and all these things.
Okay, so you have that stuff on your website. I didn't explore too deep into your website, but so you have like lab results that if somebody wanted to pull up, they could see a gross generalization. Obviously, you don't run a lab test for every single sample, right? And then or every production run and upload it. I'm assuming.
Yeah, so we've got batch numbers, which is pretty much just like when we do a run from hemp all the way to the final product.
Okay.
That one batch is going to have a couple of samples taken out throughout, and we're going to get those tested, both the hemp and the oil, like the crude oil that comes out of it, and then the final product. And so that's just going to ensure that nothing crazy is happening. I mean, we don't put anything in that we need to get out per se. A lot of companies will put different solvents in and different things for the extraction that they're going to be trying to get out.
Right, like
And
butane, I think, is one of the solvents that people use for on the THC side of things.
yeah,
I'm sure there's others that don't sound too good for your health.
yeah. I mean, even people that are doing alcohol extractions like me, they might buy alcohol that has N-heptane in it to be able to get around the taxes of consumable liquor, and they're just like, well, we'll take it out. But it's like, I don't know. I've been in an organic chemistry lab, it's like, how much are you really getting out?
I see.
So
Okay.
the FDA might say, well, X parts per billion is safe, but it's just like, well, these are toxic chemicals. It's like, what? Who says that's safe and why? Like I would be much more comfortable with nothing in there. So,
Right.
it's like, who's making these arbitrary numbers that means it's safe, and how much are you taking, and et cetera. It's just, we don't put any of that stuff in there. So we're mainly testing for, cannabinoid content, and then things that could come from the soil, like, heavy metals and things of this nature, if it was grown in bad soil.
Sure. Yeah. So you've actually gone out to the fields and stuff where the hemp is grown.
Yeah.
It is. So I've heard that hemp is a really cool kind of alien plant. I don't know if you've heard something similar. Is like it's super light like bamboo, but like strong. Have you actually like noticed those things, or am I just making up, nonsense?
No, it's a super cool plant. I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, it's very hard to work with. It's oily, and it's fibrous, and it's strong, but it's light. Like you could carry a whole big batch of it, but just cutting that stalk is like, you better have something good to cut it with, because you're definitely not it's definitely not like a tree that you could just like break over your thigh or something like that. I mean, it's like, it's just strong stuff. You really do need to cut it just because of how fibrous and how dense it is. So that's why, I mean, that's kind of one of the things that actually got the whole US into this mess, is that kind of the paper industry and stuff like that had a bit of a vendetta against hemp because of how good it is for industrial purposes. As far as the amount of pulp produced by hemp on 100 acres versus trees of 100 acres is like, I mean, I don't know the numbers. I'm not somebody who does that, but it's astronomically higher and more cost effective and better for the environment, et cetera. So, I mean, it's a great fiber for everything from ropes to paper to clothes.
Okay. So I was just pulling it up. Apparently there's been conversation the last few days of a bill going to the House, the federal Congress, to legalize marijuana in the US. And
Yeah.
so obviously we know how the Congress is broken down right now, it's likely that that'll pass. So will that have good downstream effects for you? Like, I mean, I saw on Instagram, I've seen since probably my Google searches and everything, all that creepiness, they've been pushing ads towards me that are all like CBD and stuff like that. But it requires a kind of a keen eye to see that it is CBD, because one of them was um, like recover X, and then on the bottle, the clearly, I mean, I know product design, I do product management, where it would have said CBD, the person's thumb was on it, so that the picture itself was like implied CBD, the copy implied, health benefits and recover faster, sleep better, all those things, but it didn't like directly say CBD, and that was on Instagram. So do you
Yeah.
think that there's going to be downstream positive effects?
So right now with Instagram and most marketing companies, Facebook, whatever, they're very similar to Amazon in the way that they're being very careful. You can either kind of just leave it out, or they seem to be pretty tolerable for topical solutions. If you're just saying, oh, it's just, to rub on a sore spot on your skin, they don't really, if you're being very forthright with CBD, and then you're saying you're taking it internally for health benefits, they don't like that. But
Okay.
there's definitely a large gray area of what you can do, and so I think that there's not going to be any direct benefit when that bill passes to my company, but I would just say like the hemp industry at large is probably going to benefit a decent amount from something like that being passed, just in the way that, like, you know all of these gray areas, from banking to credit card processing to advertising, I think that they're all going to see like a little bit of a boost, just because, if if banks are all of a sudden taking money from marijuana growers, like a CBD company is nothing, a CBD farmer is nothing, so it's as basically the whole cannabis hemp industry opens up, it's going to be better for everyone.
Okay, yeah, I can imagine that. It's just, scale,
Yeah.
and economies of scale. Um, you mentioned Eastern medicine before, and that goes to one of the things that I know you do, which is the chiropractics. Um, do you find that there's overlap between like your curiosity with this kind of alternative medicine and your acupuncture and chiropractic schooling that you're undergoing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it jives pretty much perfectly. I mean, chiropractic. I'm finishing up my second year of chiropractic school, and I'm also in the acupuncture program at the same time. So hopefully 2 years from now, I'll be graduating with 2 degrees there. And it really does jive um, very well because both, I mean, acupuncture would be a little bit different in just the way they're going to want to talk about, chi and balancing meridians, but essentially they're both based on the fact of balance your body, and your body will do amazing, crazy things to heal you, and it's like, it's not me that's doing it. It's not the needles. It's not the CBD. It's you. And so, you could say plenty of different ways how this happens, but like if CBD is able to down regulate your nervous system, shift you to a more parasympathetic state, let you actually relax, let your nervous system relax. Did CBD help your gastrointestinal issues? Did it help your anxiety? In a way, yes. Like, it was what was able to give it to you, but in reality, it was your body that was doing it, So it's like you're just putting somebody in a state that's letting them heal themselves. Like, their body's been wanting to relax their gastrointestinal system for maybe a day or maybe 10 years. But they've finally gotten some stimulus to be able to say, okay, now we can relax. And whether that's a chiropractic adjustment, a needle, or some CBD, it's all kind of going towards the same thing.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know I have been messing around with, I mean, I'm interested in a variety of health things. So like I started to go to my chiropractor for my back. I herniated a disc doing weightlifting. Um, and then ended up doing his marketing for a little while on social media and stuff. But a lot of the things he like works on is exactly what you just described. Like he's trying to get you aligned, and then your body will do the healing. Like we're going to ice you and get you to walk. And those seem like common sense things, but it's just so that your body can then function. Like he's like, you're going to feel a little bit better now. You're going to feel a little bit of an endorphin release from the crack. It feels good. Your brain registers that as a healthy thing, and you're going to feel good immediately because you're now not in misalignment. But then also you're going to see over the course of the next few days, you're going to feel better. And like same with decompression, you get that nerve when you pull the discs apart. That nerve immediately gets some relief, but there's still the what is it? The fluid inside the disc is like acidic. So when it hits the nerve, it causes inflammation, and the nerve
Chemical
itself.
irritation. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then I mean, it's been 2 years, 2.5 years since I actually like hurt my disc. But now I feel mostly better and I can like, work out. But it's definitely cool that you're like, you got so many like overlapping components. But like when, I don't know if have you interacted with chiropractic customers, like people who go to chiropractics for like on a frequent basis and ongoing basis for not an acute problem?
Yeah, like wellness care type deal. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
I've definitely been there. I definitely know a lot of people. I mean, I haven't shadowed for a super extended time, so I can't say that like I know hundreds of people that do wellness care, but I definitely am very familiar with it.
Yeah, I've noticed because I was going there about twice a week for personal the decompression, and also then another probably 2 times a week for business conversations. What do you want to do with marketing? Yada yada yada. And I noticed the customers that were there for wellness visits versus acute business visits, sorry, were significantly different. the people that were into the more wellness visits were more likely, from a personality standpoint, the people that would also try like acupuncture for a wellness perspective. And then people who were there for acute problems were more likely to be resistant almost to trying some of the less logical approaches. So like, oh, okay, so you want me to ice? Makes sense. Icing is what people do. Athletes do that. Oh, you want acupuncture? That's very odd. So it's funny because being there, I heard a lot of customers be like, "Can I try marijuana? Can I try this?" And I could tell that they were there for some problem that they've been experiencing for a long time. It's not like, "Oh, I pinched my nerve in my back the other day." So you're gonna notice that as you do more with in office stuff. Is your intention to pursue, like, I know obviously you're going to school for it, but are you trying to become a chiropractor in an office, or have you become a businessman because of the CBD? I'm curious.
I mean, that's one thing that's really cool. As far as, if I was originally looking to go to medical school, whatever. I'm very science inclined and all these things, but I spent a year and a half getting my mom off of opioids, and I realized, I was already interested in, I was already only going to go to osteopathic school over regular medical school, because osteopathic teaches you how to work with your hands, so I was already interested in essentially working like a chiropractor. I just, for whatever reason, wanted to go to medical school. And I just realized, I looked and I realized that I'm going to get a better hands on learning at a chiropractic school. And the other one, I'm just going to get a prescription pad. And it's like, well, I've spent a year and a half avoiding the prescription pad.
Right.
So, so yeah, as far as chiropractic versus an MD, I mean, you don't see a lot of MDs setting up a shingle nowadays. It's very much so a medical conglomerate type deal. Whereas chiropractics is just not the case. Lots of entrepreneurial uh, chiropractic doctors, and you can drive down, you drive far enough in most towns, you can find one,
Right.
who's set up their own shingle. So I think that it meshes really well as far as being a businessman, having a supplement company, maybe having multiple different side hustles, and still running a chiropractic office, because at the end of the day, I'm just interested in health, like I'm interested in people being healthy, people living their best lives. And, there's many different ways to get there, and it's going to be different for every type of person.
Right. Yeah. I totally get that. I know my chiropractor, Dr. Gigante, he's he's got his doctor of chiropractics, but he's exploring pulse electromagnetic field therapy. And so, I mean, he's invested tens of thousands of dollars in that equipment. He had an acupuncturist, and he's explored different avenues, and it seems that he likes the chiropractics. He got into the chiropractics because he knew he could help people, but he's exploring the different avenues by which he can help people in ways that interest him. Because obviously he could just scale just the straight line chiropractics, but I mean, he brought in some physical therapists so that he can scale that so he can help more people. But I mean, he's very principled, right? Like, he's not going to be the guy that crack, okay, get out of here, come back next week. He spends time with patients. Explained to me that when he learned chiropractics, he was learning from a guy who really wanted to mechanize the process. He really wanted to say, okay, 10 minutes per person, 15 minutes per person, and then you move on to the next patient. And he realized that just doesn't work. Like, people don't operate that way. They don't get healed from 15 minutes of interaction. Like, that's one of the big problems of our medical system is doctors run into your operating room, the nurse took your blood pressure, your height, your weight, whatever, and then they run out, and then you didn't learn anything from the doctor. And I mean, you sound like a learned person. You're not just reading the textbooks and then walking away. You're more wholesome, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big problem in, all of medicine. It's like, at the end of the day, time is our most valuable resource.
Mhm.
So if you can give of that, it's very important, and people understand that. At the end of the day, um, you could go down any kind of crazy rabbit hole of alternative health, and if you bless water, the structure looks better, and you could
Right.
go way down these things, but people don't like to feel like a piece of meat, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
spend the time with people, and at the end of the day, it goes down to tools in his toolbox, like, a lot of problems with straight chiropractic is, they put all this emphasis on like a COC1, like an upper cervical adjustment. And I mean,
It's
I've
was an
had,
occipital subluxation.
yeah, right there. And, and I've had that stuck for a really long time, and then like had it adjusted. It's life changing. You know what I mean? It's like, if you have that problem and you get that done, like, you will be a chiropractic zealot for your whole life. Like, there's no way that you can't have that as a positive experience. But the thing, that's not everybody's problem. You know what I mean? So it's like, somebody might have some densification in their back that, no matter how much you crack their neck or crack their low back, you've got to
Well,
get in there with friction and break up the connective tissue. You know what I mean? So it's like,
back up. What did you say? Dentification?
densification, just some kind of
Oh,
density, connective tissue, whatever it is, So it's different tools in the toolbox that you got to have for people, and figuring out who they are, what kind of tool they need, and then implementing the right thing. I mean, these things take time, not it's a very profitable way to do it, and it's a very simple way to do it, is just say, I've got a hammer, and if you want to come see me and you're a nail, I charge this much, and come through, and it's going
right.
to be 10 minutes, and but it's not very realistic, because how many people, you take 10 people with low back pain. I mean, this is the problem with research in low back pain, is they can't find any solution, because 10 people with low back pain have 10 different mechanisms of onset. So it's like, you do a study, does this intervention work? Maybe it works for one person, the other nine are like, well, that wasn't my problem. So saying you got one mode of entry, I just do a chiropractic adjustment real quick and then you get out, you're not looking at the whole patient, what their problem is, who they are, and they don't feel cared for, and the problem might not get addressed.
Right. Have you heard of the problem with back pain is that a lot of people will go in for an acute problem and they'll have like three vertebrae that are messed up, or there's like discs that are all um, bulging discs and stuff that they didn't know was a problem, and like they get an MRI, and then because of, like for example, I had my hip done 2 summers ago, so I had a labrum tear in my hip, and then
Same.
they gave, oh, you, okay, what was it, from squatting?
Just general overuse, they said.
Okay. But they I knew I hurt my back too, so I came in for a back problem. They saw the labrum problem, but it goes in reverse too. What I heard was that like a lot of people, I mean, after the age of, I don't know, what is it, 40, have bulging discs, and they just live with them and they don't even notice them. So the problem is, like what you're just describing, is some people might not even have the bulging disc as the cause of their back pain. It could just be, their psoas is tight or something like that.
Yeah, and so I mean, like, I'm totally not one of those guys who's like, surgery doesn't work. I just told you I got my labrum and my hip all
Mhm.
fixed up, and I had that. It was, I'm glad I did it. But it's like, knee MCL surgeries, depending on the research paper you look at, they're not even statistically correlated with getting the patient out of pain. Because then you go and you MRI 100 people, 50 of them have an MCL, some kind of imperfection, and it's like, so was that there for 10 years and they didn't notice it, and then they had knee pain and you MRI'd and it was there and you fixed it, but whatever the real thing was that caused them pain didn't get fixed. It's just, especially when you go to athletic population, I mean, you go to the general population, every 10 years that people get older, it's a huge rise in percentage of people that have imperfections in their MRIs.
Mhm.
And at that point it kind of becomes a psychosomatic thing. That's why I'm very, I if you have an acute trauma that you need to go to the hospital for, that is completely not what I'm talking about. But in general, when I talk to people, they have pain, I say do 4 to 6 weeks of conservative care. Do some NSAIDs, do some physical therapy or some chiropractic or some acupuncture, do it yourself. But uh, the way people's minds work, if we just go in the next day, we get an MRI, I have 3 herniated discs. It's like, now I just put a stamp on my forehead. I'm broken, and I need someone to fix me. And it's just like, you know, maybe it is your problem. I know people that have gotten spinal surgery and it was, the God sent for them, but it's just the surgery. It's not like you can't do the surgery after a month,
Right.
and you'll read, orthopedic papers, and it's the same thing with chiropractors, the same thing with any intervention. I mean, there's a certain percentage of people that would have just gotten better after a month. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I've heard, God, what is his name over at Westside Barbell? Um,
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Westside Barbell. He came up with
the
the
reverse
reverse hyper.
hyper.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So he tells everybody to just do your
Louis
post
Simmons.
operative.
There we
Yeah,
go.
Louis Simmons. Yeah, he just tells everybody to do their post operative rehab. And then if that doesn't work, just do it. Do get the surgery and then do the rehab again. You know what I mean? Because it's
Mhm.
like just doing some exercises, just doing some specific things, just working past that hurdle mentally, for a large portion of people is going to help them. You know what I mean? It's like, and there will be, I'm not a injury denier. You know what I mean? Like there will be
Right.
out of 10 people, there'll be a certain amount of people that they'll get to the end of that and they'll be like, it didn't help. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, absolutely.
if 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, however many people just do some conservative care, they don't need to go under the knife. I mean, whether we're talking about, your own personal health not being impacted, or we're talking about, healthcare bills and the cost of healthcare in the country at a personal and a societal level, it's a win to everybody.
Right. Yeah, I'm very conservative with my approach to like medicine. I don't like the formality of doctors and like I'm more inclined to go to a chiropractor or go to, my own research on the internet, as dangerous as that may be. Um, but one of the things that I've been exploring because of, Ben Greenfield,
Yeah.
he's okay. So you might have read his article about BPC 157. It was like Healing Like Wolverine was the headline of his blog post. And I ended up buying some online. And for the example that I go to is I had both my rotator cuffs were severely damaged. I don't know
Is
exactly
that
what
a,
it
is that a
was.
peptide?
Yeah, it's a peptide.
Yeah. Okay.
So like
Okay.
it's getting into those, the less safe options, let's say, versus, okay, let me get some bands and let's say the rotator cuff, let me get some bands, let me do some exercises, let me do some stretching. Um, but I went to my chiropractor. He said, because, for my back, and then I literally couldn't lift my arms against his resistive test. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, the lateral raise test. He presses down on my hands. I couldn't do it, like with maybe 5 pounds of pressure. And he's like, "Yep, you probably damaged your rotator cuffs. This is really unfortunate." And I said, "Okay, let's just hold off. It's been a week of, can't move my hand from my keyboard to my mouse kind of issue." And I tried the BPC 157. Literally 2 weeks later, I was back to benching like heavyweight because I do powerlifting
Nice.
style, and it was wild. And it was just because I was willing to, my risk tolerance is pretty high. I don't know,
Hey,
rock climbing, stuff like that. I've always been tuned to that level of risk. Get towards those bleeding edges of the excitement and thus recovery. I don't
yeah.
know if you do any kind of crazy sports on the
Yeah,
topic of rock climbing?
I've been big into rock climbing since I was a kid. I was
Oh,
on a
really?
team.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
Okay. That's really
yeah, I
funny
was
that I
on a
mentioned that then.
team. I was on a team in middle school, and then college. I was kind of just busy being an idiot, so I wasn't working out too much. But instead of just doing my usual like barbell stuff, I just was a member of like a rock climbing gym. I would just go there a couple of times a week to just not get fat.
I got you.
Lots of fun.
Mostly bouldering?
Bouldering, top roping, whatever. I haven't been outside in like years now, but it's definitely something I've really enjoyed.
Yeah, I was at last summer before COVID and all that nonsense. My neighbor asked me because I got his son into rock climbing. He's a few years younger than me, and he said, "Hey, could you take my son to the climbing gym, hang out with him for a few hours, be like a kind of a big older brother, because I mean he's a single dad and all that. And so I said sure, and it was so refreshing to go back. You know, like when you've been inculcated with a culture, the ins and outs of it, and you're like, I don't know. I went back. It felt good to climb, but I was like, all right, I've definitely mentally moved on, but it's always gonna be part of me. I mean, I did climbing from when I was 10 to,
Nice,
to about
nice.
2021. So it was a long window of time doing the same kind of sport, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. That is, I definitely, I have nothing but good things to say about rock climbing. It's a ton of fun. I mean, as I said, it's been a couple of years since I've been outside actually doing real stuff. But I mean, I mean, probably whatever, once or twice a year, I always just go to the gym, just screw around. I mean, it's just fun climbing around like a monkey. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a good first date. It makes a good a good form of exercise, and it's good. I mean, it's a good community of people. Usually, climbers are really chill guys. Like I know Joe Rogan just had on his podcast a female climber that did. She climbed
Yeah,
El
Sasha or something,
Capitan.
I think.
Oh no, that
Or
it was Emily,
oh,
Emily
okay.
something. But anyhow, so she did a free the I don't know if you've noticed this with the climbing community is when they get into the mainstream to talk about things,
They
it
die.
sound oh no, but like Alex Honnold like explaining sorry, Emily was explaining she free climbed, I think it was El Capitan or something like that. I think it was El Capitan, but it was like, oh, so you free climbed. That sounds like you were a climber with no ropes, no assistive devices, anything. You climbed it up. That sounds crazy and scary and dangerous and like at the bleeding edge of what is safe. Oh, well, it actually means something different. And I've always been under the assumption that free climbing meant, without any assistive devices and no ropes or anything. And when it was being explained, I was like, I could see how an outsider who doesn't like know, climbing culture might be like, wow, so she climbed a 2,000 or whatever foot cliff with no ropes. And I was just like, that sounds a little misleading, you know? I wish some of that stuff was explained a little bit better. I don't know
I
if you've
think,
noticed that.
yeah, I understand that for sure. But I did Honnold do it with no ropes? I thought he was I thought he
Yeah, he
got into
did.
the no ropes thing. Yeah.
Yeah, he was the actual no ropes kind of climber, free soloing
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
versus
There
free
we go.
climbing, which is so oddly similar. It sounds like it's designed to be misleading, like that free climbers want to get that perception of badassery without actually the risk.
Yeah,
Um,
the what's it called? The career, how long your career is in free soloing is not terribly long, unfortunately. Once
yeah,
people
well,
go down that route, it's a little tough.
yeah, I think you have to be wired differently though to do that. Like I enjoyed some bouldering, some top roping. I did, my focus was competitive climbing, like indoor competitive climbing. I wasn't going for like, putting up some crazy numbers out in the crag and all that, but like I enjoyed the form of exercise, and I enjoyed the competitive element of it, like knowing, okay, I can see the people that I'm competing against, and it's literally they're doing the same exact thing as me. It's not like I've never been into team sports personally, never been into like the soccer, basketball, whatever, and I liked that. Okay, we're all challenged by the same thing, and we each get a turn at it. That was just a blast. Um, a while ago, earlier you mentioned. Um, patience being like a piece of meat, and I want to connect that to your wild diet.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So
uh,
please share.
yeah. I mean, I'm not on a carnivore diet, but I have been on the carnivore diet at different points. I've always been a fan of kind of like paleo keto ways of eating. That's something that's been, I don't know, at least 5 years or so. I mean, I haven't really been into all that stuff. I mean, I've
Okay.
stayed away from like gluten and processed sugar since high school. I mean, so that's like, whatever, 5, 10 years.
Okay.
So I've always been very into kind of the more keto, paleo type nutrition. Um, when I was that young, I kind of was a little bit attracted to the whole vegan type thing, but it made me feel terrible. So I definitely, and I don't know. I kind of felt what was natural was kind of eating more meat rather than less, just being somebody that was into like backpacking and like watching Survivor Man and stuff like that. I'm like, the berries aren't getting you by, bro. But
Yeah. No, I
so
totally get that.
yeah. And so, I mean, when I got out of college, I kind of like really, really started going 100% like keto. And then I was just dealing with a lot of different intestinal, health issues and stuff like that. I ended up just going full carnivore for quite a
Okay.
while, a couple months. I mean, I was a huge fan of how it just like, I mean, it is the ultimate elimination diet. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
absolutely. Your
It is.
inflammation levels will definitely, drop off and you won't have as many gut issues. I mean, I have Crohn's disease, so I know gut issues
Yeah, that's
forward and
serious.
back. And but I haven't gotten anything like crazy elimination other than, not eating for a week when I had intestinal surgery. But
Okay.
I
Oh, wow.
definitely, yeah, I had, 2 feet of my intestine removed. I made
Large or
some YouTube
small?
videos about it. Uh, it was the right from the bottom of the stomach, the duodenum. So
Yeah.
like right below that, out 2 feet, and it was just super inflamed. And then once they removed that, I've had almost no issues for all of what, like 4 years or something like that.
Wow.
And so like again,
Are
going
you
back to that,
able to tolerate fats with that?
I can
Like,
tolerate everything because
oh,
it was
okay.
below the duodenum. So
Okay.
um, that's
Oh,
also
below the duodenum. I thought you said below the
right.
stomach. Okay.
Well, I mean, the duodenum is right
Yeah, yeah,
south
yeah.
of the
Stomach,
stomach. So
duodenum. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So it's right south of the duodenum. But I okay. So maybe I can tolerate fats, but what's interesting is like I've always been able to claim that I can eat a ton of calories and not gain any weight, and I've always been a super skinny, lean person. So maybe I see it as a superpower, like being like maybe all the fat calories I take in are just not being digested.
Okay.
Perhaps I don't know. And maybe that's why like when I've tried like a very like keto oriented diet, it hasn't worked. Because I tried I tried a keto for like 3 or 4 days of like strict, absolutely strict, no carbs, and I had that like steep drop off of like energy, and then it came back thinking like, oh, okay, I got this. Turns out I think I was more in a fasted, that fasted high versus a, fat, normalizing my energy levels. So I think I don't know. I want to do a more meat oriented diet only because I think that there's just general benefits. Like you posted something the other day about like the difference of like greenhouse emissions, I believe it was, uh, for a meat diet or a for I think it was grass fed cows versus
Yeah.
factory
So,
farmed cows.
yeah. So I'm a big fan of like regenerative agriculture. Like if you're if somebody's telling you your diet's bad for the environment and you're shopping at the supermarket, I mean, they're right, whether you're picking up meat or cereal. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, those supply chains and everything else, like they are very carbon intensive.
Right.
Factory farming of beef, very carbon emission intensive. And, I granted, like, when I go out to eat and stuff, I don't like fast if they don't have a grass fed burger or something like that. But for the most part, the food that I, spend my grocery bills on, I try to be pretty stringent with the quality there because I mean, the health side of it, I could go into, but as far as the carbon emission side, if an animal is raised on grass its whole life, a cow is raised on grass its whole
Hmm.
life, depending on the exact farming practices, it could actually be carbon negative or carbon neutral just in the way that it interacts with the nitrogen cycle and the carbon cycle, and it stores so much carbon in the soil. So the way that we're going to get away from the degradation of the habitats in this country and being able to restore the soil health of the middle of our country so we don't deal with another dust bowl and runoff and all these things is actually more cows just raised in a correct way because
Right.
as it sits there's less cows on grass right now than there were bison on grass when we got to this continent.
Oh,
So it's
I didn't know
like,
about that.
yeah, so it's just like, that it's, ruminant animals are not, if we murdered them all, it wouldn't solve the environment issue. If we just put an end to cows, and it's like Alan Savory talks about this, about how the logical end to that is killing all the elephants, killing all the moose, because they're polluting the environment. But if you put it in perspective that these animals are part of the carbon cycle, they're part of the nitrogen cycle, and if you just test how much nitrogen or how much carbon is coming out of their burps and their farts and saying, wow, we can't do this, it's not really accurate, because if you compare that to how much carbon they're storing in the soil that goes through the whole life cycle, it actually more than evens out. And it's just making sure that you're raising them properly and mimicking them with regenerative agriculture, permaculture, things like this.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I remember there was something I read about how if we brought back the woolly mammoth and, created a nature reserve up in the Siberian stratus, up in, what is that, Russia, right?
Yep.
Um, that they could drastically change the environment up there and turn it from a permafrost, like break down the permafrost soil, pack it down, and allow seeds to grow, and it would actually, reforest the area because they're moving nutrients around. And how, you know, I thought this wild idea. Imagine, I don't know if you're into hunting. I've kind of been interested in it, not in a actually, exploring it myself, but I know, appreciating the passion that people have towards hunting, because you're getting a decent amount of meat off of the death of one animal versus killing a dozen different cows in order to get your burgers for the week. Um, but the idea of in the same way we have elephant hunts for allowing the money paid by the hunter to save dozens of elephants. Imagine doing the same with woolly mammoths. Imagine having, like, the ultimate trophy hunt for a previously extinct animal, and then that could save, you spent $100,000 as a hunter, you're a mega million hunter, and all of a sudden now you're able to save, maybe a whole nother species with just that one hunt. And I thought that was a wild idea, but I don't think anybody's actually pursuing it.
No, I mean, I totally understand where you're coming from, and it's just, I would say just, as far as North America goes, I mean, when we're talking about cows, bison, elk, I mean, that's really all we need, like it's ruminant animals, and it's just making sure that they're mimicking nature. It's like
Mhm.
the whole regenerative agriculture thing is just making sure that they're being moved every day in a small plot of land. So basically they eat up all of the grass in that area, they stomp it, they poop there, and then that grass gets to rest, because in nature, bison, they're going to be hiding from predators. They're going to be all in a tight, closed area,
Right.
kind of packed together. If you look at like the gazelles in Africa, and they're going to move as a pack constantly. So whatever grass they just ate, stomped on, pooped on, they're not going to get back to that for a very long amount of time. So if you section out your, land like that, and you run cattle like that, kind of mimicking nature, that's what does what you just described with the woolly mammoth. Now, would it be valid to bring back a woolly mammoth and have the woolly mammoths do that? Sure, maybe, but it's any large ruminant really will
Okay.
have this effect.
I
So
think it's
I don't,
just a fantastical idea, like imagine being able to see those in the wild. I mean, I know a lot of people haven't traveled to Africa and seen, the great savannas. My father has, and he says it's quite an impactful experience. Um, you mentioned the gas or the carbon emissions were associated with moving meat. And I saw one of the posts that you had shared was a woman who had bought something like a quarter cow or half a cow and just froze a bunch of it. And I was wondering, I'm sure you know it better than I, and I was trying to explore it. How would I go through that process from somebody who just goes to ShopRite right now to get my foods to actually being able to have, grass-fed or finished beef in a freezer in my basement? Like, what would be the steps to do that?
Yeah, so I mean, like you're gonna have to either, I mean, depending on your area and the laws and everything else like this, because you'd be surprised how people are legally strangled by the laws pertaining to, raw milk and private butchering and, private sale of things like this. But, depending on the laws, like up in Connecticut, I buy when I can, I buy from a butcher that's just like a private butcher that just gets like 2 cows a week from a local farm, and
Okay.
they've got regenerative agriculture, so if I wanted to just buy a half of a cow or a full cow or a quarter of a cow from a farmer, I could bring it to them and have them butcher it for me. You could butcher it yourself the same as you would do with like a deer if you just if you just hunted. Um, there's lots of different options, but I would say generally you'd be wanting to buy straight from the farmer because that's going to give you the best bang for your buck, so to speak. I mean, it's not
Okay.
something that I do now, but it's something I hope to do in the future when I have like my own house and everything else like that.
Sure. Yeah, same. That's why I'm interested in exploring the idea.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just making inroads with farmers, making sure they're, organic. How do they treat their animals? And, if you've been there, they do things right. You can go ahead and buy a whole cow or a half a cow or whatever, and you save an astronomical amount of money when you do that. I mean, you know, depending on the butchering costs and stuff like that, you're looking at two or three, less than $5 a pound for, ribeyes. So
So
it's
what
it's
is that, half, I guess? I don't know what ShopRite as a baseline cost for some decent meat. But yeah, so that's per pound, $5 per pound roughly.
um
Is that what you're implying
yeah.
when you
I
say
mean,
five?
about it. Yeah,
Okay.
$5 a pound or so. I mean, less than $5 for sure. I mean, I've seen people say five. I've seen people say two. So, I mean, it's going to depend a lot on what you get the cow for and if you do the butchering yourself and things like this. But it's just an example of the way that you know you getting that cow from local and you getting it in bulk, you're saving yourself money. You're saving carbon emissions of getting it transported. Whether you get a cow or an avocado from Central America, it's a massive amount of carbon emissions to get that
Right.
to your plate. So it's like, you know, if I have a grass fed cow that I grabbed from down the street and I drove it back to my house myself, versus the avocado from Central America, what is really does have the bigger carbon footprint?
Yeah, I mean, or the burger. I mean, you get the cow was raised in Texas, killed in Texas. It was brought up to Kansas where there's, yeah, it's processed and then it's brought up to shop and there's, big trucks involved and all that versus, a local piece of property getting the benefits of having a live animal on it, moving nutrients around, nitrogen cycle being, furthered by having this animal and then it, dies within miles of where it was raised, and then it's eaten only a few miles from that. So that sounds pretty reasonable. Is it because you're in Connecticut frequently, or is that where you live?
That's I've got an apartment up there for school.
Okay.
Just because I mean, right now I'm all online, but for most of the semester, like my semester just ended early, in person, but usually we've got like 2 to 4 days in person for most of the semester. So just when I'm there, I'm up there.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm just curious as like as people move around, especially with nowadays, right? We got a few different things that would make it difficult to move. I know I had plans to travel, I've only been working for like in an office setting for about 2 years. I was like, 2 years in, I'm going to go and enjoy a summer of, traveling. I'll build up some PTO and, go to Europe or something. And then that kind of got thrown thrown in the gutter, and we've been forced to take paid time off, and stuff like that. That it's definitely different. Have you noticed like a lifestyle change that you wouldn't have expected? I'm curious. Something that you would have been like, oh, that doesn't make any sense that would happen, but it's happening
You mean
because of
just
COVID.
from COVID? Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you imagined what a lifestyle would look like versus what it actually is.
I
It's a
mean,
weird question, I know. Sorry.
just my own personal thing. I guess I mean, my life's probably gotten a little bit easier because of it, to be completely honest. I mean, I used to be on campus in class from like pretty much 8 to 3 or 5, depending on the day, 5 days a week. So, and then I would, go to the gym and then get home and do my company stuff. So,
Hmm.
I mean, going from that to only about half of my classes are live now, and the other half are, they're a recording or a project or something like that. So, I mean, the amount of like time of like, that I can divvy up by myself per week is definitely grown. So, I mean, you could say it's a good or a bad thing, and whether or not these things are impacting learning. And, if we're going to get some engineers in a couple of years that are going to build bridges that fall down, maybe, maybe not. But so, I mean, I definitely have more free time because of COVID. So, but we'll see how that ends up having an impact on, kids and education and things like that.
Oh yeah, sure. I know my mom's a teacher, and so she teaches out of the kitchen right now because it's an interesting situation. She likes the standing desk experience, and she teaches there, so I get to actually see the interactions. And these are sixth grade students, a certain level of maturity, and they're flipping their cameras off, and she has to deal with logistics issues almost just as much as the teaching side of things. And it's yeah, you're right. I don't know if the bridges are going to be falling down in 20 years, but we'll definitely see, some side effects.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I think we're gonna start wrapping up. But I mean, I enjoyed uh, having this conversation with you. I want to ask one last pointed question, which is like, who is your target customer for whole plant medicine, and and then kind of plug your website and your social media so that we can share it with whoever's gonna watch this.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say that my target customer is just kind of anyone that needs, I guess, anyone that needs a little bit of, relaxation or relief from their life. Like it's not going to be, CBD certainly isn't morphine. It's not going to take all your ails away. But kind of how I see it is it just takes the edge off of so many things that people deal with, that is able to just get them to deal with to, be themselves in their own life. It takes that edge off, it relaxes you, it lets you be yourself, and not carry that burden of the things that so many people are dealing with. So the spectrum is pretty broad, but that's generally who tends to be our best customers. And I mean, as far as where you can find us, wholeplantmedicine.com. Uh, that's where you can place your orders. Whole Plant Medicine CBD on Instagram and Facebook, all one word. And that's pretty much where you can find us. I mean, and you're always welcome to reach out either through the website or through the social medias to me. I will, answer you promptly if you have any other questions about whole plant medicine, and, hopefully you try the whole plant difference.
Well, that was a good pitch. And I really do appreciate having this conversation with you.